Welcome to Collective Soulversations. I'm Jody Jones, and I'm thrilled to have you join me on this amazing journey exploring spirituality, healing, and personal growth. With over 15 years of experience as a psychic medium and energy healer, I've made it my mission to help people connect with their true selves, and I can't wait to share this journey with you. In every episode, I chat with incredible guests who bring their own unique stories and insights to the table. We dive into different tools and practices that can help support you on your path of self discovery. So, whether you're just starting out or you've been in this journey for a while, Collective Soulversations is all about creating a friendly and welcoming space for us to explore the mysteries of the soul together. So, grab your favorite cup of tea, get comfy, and let's dive into this enlightening adventure together. Hey, everybody, welcome to Collective Soulversations. I am your host, Jody Jones, and we have Mr. Cacey Scott in the house. Hey, Cacey.
Hi, Jody. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, awesome. I'm so glad that you are back here, and we are going to chat and get into some fun stuff. And so, for you guys out there who didn't get to see Cacey's first episode with us, go back and watch episode 3. I think it was just a podcast. It might not even be a video because when we started off, we were just doing the podcast audio, and then everybody was like, "Oh, where's the video? I need to see the video." So we've changed that. So you can watch it as a podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts, and you can watch it as a video on YouTube and on Spotify. They have the video there now too. So let me just tell you a little bit about Cacey, and then you guys can go and watch episode 3. That's where Cacey was in there, and you'll get his whole backstory and all of the interesting facts that he brings with him. So, Cacey Scott is a medical medium healing practitioner plus spiritual mindset coach. And he himself has healed from over 80 chronic neurological, digestive, and skin symptoms. So Cacey works with clients all over the world and helps them to heal too. Welcome, 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 Cacey. Yay.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you. I'm happy to be back talking with you and diving deep into this healing work and I love what you're doing and putting out such great information, connecting with, other healing people all around the world is so helpful.
Thank you. I appreciate that so much. And thank you so much for keeping this time together because congratulations, Cacey is a father, first time father of a little baby. Tell us your baby boy's name and anything that you want to share with us about that.
Yes, I am just so overloaded with so much love and joy right now for my first son at 37 years old after having severe chronic illness for the past 7 years and not knowing if I'm even going to end up getting married and have a child. I believe these things, but now that it's come to fruition in such a beautiful divine way, everything was so magical and how it unfolded. And now I have a baby boy named Oakley Wilder Scott. Born,
Wow. That's a
yep, born.
powerful name, right?
Yeah, I just love the name. Born Friday at 2:01.
Oh, beautiful.
2:01, middle of
Beautiful.
the day, baby, which is a little bit rare.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. For sure.
Yeah,
Actually, all 3 of my babies were like that. So that's a good sign. And mommy is doing well. Brooklyn, your lovely wife is doing well.
yeah, yeah. She is doing so well. I am so incredibly proud of her. She she wanted this home birth, and I wanted this home birth, and we weren't sure if it was going to happen because we did find some midwives that we absolutely loved, but her hemoglobin was really low and her iron was low, and we weren't sure. We took the test results, I think it was like 6 7 months back, and once we were talking to the midwives when we said we wanted to be with them, it came back low, and we weren't sure if that was going to get up enough to be able to have the home birth,
Right.
and because you have to have a level 10 by, I forgot what it was, a certain time period, a couple months or so before before you can do an actual home birth. That's like the
Right.
law of the state.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so we took we took the test and it was a 9.8.
Oh.
And a 9.8. And it was too low, and so they said, okay, we're gonna retest you in a week. Take these iron pills, and we retested. And it was a 10.1 or 2, something like
Right.
that, and we were able to
Perfect.
have the baby. And
Yeah.
they still had space open too, and they only take clients who are more aligned with them, like 3 babies a month, so they're not overloaded. And it worked out. It worked out, and we were able to save the money for it.
Wow.
And now she's doing so well, right? She had a lot of fear around bleeding and hemorrhaging because she had hemorrhage about, what was that? About 4 years, maybe no longer, 5 or 6 years ago, not from a pregnancy, but from a sexual encounter. And it was really, really intense. And so she's been on her spiritual journey for a while. And so she had a lot of fear to overcome with this pregnancy. And she
Mhm.
just kept the calling to home birth, the calling to home birth. And while her mom, works as a, uh, in the postpartum part of the hospital for babies, and is
Oh,
a little
wow.
bit pushy, had a lot of fear in pushing her daughter to not do this. And
Right, right.
she's just like, she took the leap and she did it, and she didn't even bleed. She didn't even bleed. And this is so incredible because we had prayed, and I prayed to the right angels, and her diet is so clean. She nourished her body.
Yeah.
She was mentally prepared. She stayed calm and focused, had her mantras, and the universe supported her the whole way.
That's beautiful.
Yeah,
I love that so much, and it's such great validation for the 2 of you, as a couple who are, not just, talking the talk, you're walking the talk, right?
that's it. Yeah, and walking the talk is literally just answering those calls to where you're called to go. And there's fear that arises that puts you out into the unknown, and it's scary, but that's your soul calling you into higher vibrations of love and freedom and connection to self, right?
Yeah,
And that is the
absolutely.
beauty that comes from on the other side. And once you do, it's always so scary at first, and once you do, it just God's plan is just, when you follow that soul's calling, is just so beautiful and loving and
Absolutely,
freedom.
absolutely. And so we know, and again, they can go back and listen to episode 3 to hear your in-depth story, because it's really quite incredible with all of the things that you've overcome. I want to ask you though, through this, because now you obviously are at a point in your healing journey where you've healed a significant amount of things. When you look back, how much do you think of that was having to do with your spiritual healing, your emotional healing, the self-discovery? How much do you think of that portrayed in your healing journey?
About 50%, for
Yeah.
sure. It
Yeah.
was, I mean, you could, the way that you would look at it, it could be even higher to 70, 80, 90%. I don't heal without deep, deep emotional healing and spiritual connection and an empowered mindset, right? With those things.
Right.
And yes, my cleansing my body was a critical aspect. Like, I don't heal without that either. Like,
Hmm.
because my cleansing process was so hard, I couldn't work physically. I couldn't work. I couldn't remember anything. I couldn't do anything. And the cleansing process made me have more anxiety, depression, OCD, weakness, fatigue. It enhanced everything. I knew I had to go through that. And I had no way of working. I had no way of doing anything. So I had to create my own way while being so limited physically and mentally. And
Right.
so my part of my healing process was I needed to make money to support myself because no one I was living at my parents, and they didn't I still had to pay a little bit of rent. I was like, practically, I was bedbound, and housebound, and
Right.
I still had to pay my phone bill and food. They weren't doing that for me. And so I just started telling my story online. I remember the first post I made about what I was going through. I was so scared. I had sweating, I had so much anxiety, and I just talked a little bit about what I was going through, and the feedback was so great. It was
Yeah.
so great. And but it was scary at first, and then I just kept stepping more into my authenticity and finding my voice
Right.
to share that. So that's why I say empowered mindset. There was so much fear I had to face and do so that I can learn how to actually manifest and attract from the present, from the now moment. Right, so I
Right.
just so me attracting clients was 1 to 2 clients a day while I healed myself. I had to be able to hold this belief that I can help and heal others while I'm healing myself, because there was limiting beliefs and fears arising all the time that no one wants to work with me because I'm not healed myself, but I switched that around within myself to seeing that, well, I have more validation because I am going through that myself and can show up and be really authentic around that.
Right. Yeah.
And that was one aspect of the spiritual mindset that I needed to hold that frequency of positivity and presence and multitask doing so many things while staying present and calm through my cleansing journey. But before I even got to that part, which is what you were talking about, about the spirit, how much of that was my healing around the spiritual, mental, and emotional, was before I even started healing. When I got sick, I was in so much fear, like so much fear, because I was a hypochondriac when I was in my teens. I had a sexual experience between I was like 13, between the ages of or grades 8th and ninth grade, and I had anal sex with this young girl, and I was 8th grade, she was 7th grade, and that triggered this fear of I was gonna have an STD, like, and I
Mm.
started getting it was a big wound, and I started to, at that time, freak out about my body going through puberty. What's this? What's that? It was so fear-based that it caused me anxiety disorder throughout high school about
Right.
what was happening to my body because of fear of HIV, fear of these things, and that developed into it kind of faded a little bit after high school, but it when I turned 21 and started drinking, I started getting panic attacks. And so I went on anxiety medication. Paxil was on that for 10 years. And when
Right.
I came off of that at age of 30, and that's when I started to get sick, and all this all the same tendencies that I had in high school of hypochondria came back when I started getting symptoms. So there was so much mental and emotional work that needed to be done
Hmm.
before I could actually even start cleansing my body and healing, because
Right.
that fear and reactions were making me sicker. I was getting worse and worse because I was so scared every day, and I was resisting. I was reacting. My mind was dark and negative, and I was worrying about everything, and that was making me, it literally made me sicker. And I know this so well that that was the truth, because I went through 4 months of feeling like I was gonna die at any moment, and one day I woke up and was like, "I haven't died yet, and I need to face this." Like, I need to I was like, just that awakening moment where, like, I need to change something.
Right. Yeah. That mental component shifted.
It was that moment, and I just grabbed a journal, a notebook, and my pen, and I went in my backyard, and I sat down on the bench there, and I just started crying with the intention to start slowly facing it and just talking about it. Like, I feel like I'm gonna die, but I haven't died yet. I'm still here. I need to start facing this. I can do this. I can move through it. And just as I started putting a little more energy into that, and changing that, I started to watch miracles. Like, I typed in miracles on YouTube, and all these stories of like the power of belief, and I started
Right.
learning about these things, and so I started doing them, and I started doing breathing exercise, and I started reading these books, and I could barely remember anything, but it was just enough so that I could actually start integrating it.
Right.
And
Yeah.
as I did this, I started to see shifts, and able calming down. My body was kind of correcting itself to where I could start doing a little bit more.
Right. Yeah. That's, it's interesting because I was thinking about this in preparation for our talk today. How I discovered you was because a couple of years ago, and you know this because I came and saw you as a client. I hit a really, really low in my health. Like I was having severe neurological stuff, neurological fatigue to the point where I could barely stand. I couldn't wash dishes. I couldn't cook supper. I, you know, And it's funny because I feel like it was so complicated with me because I have the whole psychic medium, stuff that is part of who I am. For a really long time leading up to that, I think there was a part of me that was believing into, oh, well, you know what? This is just ascension symptoms. You're just being super sensitive, and all of that was true. I'm an empath, I'm highly sensitive. All of that stuff is absolutely true. But I was also, using my spiritual path as a bypass to bypass my physical body. Which is crazy, right? But I feel like in the spiritual community, you can easily do that. You can easily be, I'm gonna just pray and meditate this away. So it's it's a, highlighting moment when we discover, well, you know what, I have to address both. I've got to really tackle the physical aspect, and then I've got to bring that spiritual component back in, because again, we realize that we are souls driving a human vehicle, and the human vehicle does need maintenance, right? But so I started joining the medical medium Facebook groups. So, I had been using Anthony Williams' teachings with my own clients for years and years and years. Wasn't using it so much for myself. I was, doing that. I was doing the talk and not the walk. That's how I was doing it. But I started joining the medical medium Facebook groups to be like, okay, so I obviously need to do some stuff. Like, let's see how everybody else is healing from things like vertigo, vestibular migraines. Like, these were chronic dizziness. These were things that were sticking with me. And somebody made a post about you. They were talking about you, and they were saying, because I can't remember what the conversation was, but I feel like they were talking about, oh, is anybody else having like really bad detox reactions? Like, or I can't do this anymore. I want to give up. I don't think I can do this. And I remember somebody putting your name in there and saying, well, you should go listen to this guy on Instagram, because he has healed himself and is healing himself, and he is like eating sweet potatoes and real potatoes, and he's not talking about just the celery juice and all of the supplements, and he's doing it like in his own way, and he's still healing. And I was like, "Ah, I got to talk to this guy. I got to go and talk to." And that's when I searched you and found you. And I wanted you to talk a little bit about this, because I'm sure you know this, being, immersed in the whole medical medium world now. There, the groups are wonderful, the people are beautiful, and everybody is doing their best to heal. But it can be very fear based,
Yeah.
right? It can be very, very, if you don't do this exactly the way the protocol is in the book, then you're not going to get better. And you're a perfect example. I want you to talk to us a little bit about how many cleanses have you done? Do you do this? Did you do the celery juice? Did you, because you didn't do it verbatim, step by step. You changed it to your own way, which is, I learned that was how I had to do it. I tried doing it the other
Yeah.
way, and it
Yeah.
wasn't working for me either.
Yeah. This is so true that it's people, because there's a mainstream way of doing medical medium information. People can, because of their own hyper focus on it, they can make the assumption that if you're not doing it that mainstream way, then that there's no other way, or that, and a lot of people think that because they're having that experience, everyone is having that experience. And
Right.
God never ever makes it so that we all have the same experience, because how boring would that be, right? How
Right.
how unevolutionary that would be, right? We're here to grow and expand, and we're here to learn how to actually support each other, even if we have different beliefs and different experiences. And that is something in the spiritual community, in all communities in the world, that until we learn how to do that, we're not going to heal this planet, right? So
Yeah.
people in the medical medium community still need to learn how to do that, because there is so many different ways, thousands of different ways to use the medical medium information. And that's why he always says there's no one way and there's no one protocol. you've got all these different books, and I used the Life Changing Foods book and the 28-day cleanse that he had from his first book. Before the 369 cleanses that he had and liver rescue and cleanse to heal were out, I had already been cleansing for 2-3 years. And
Right.
so I studied the information. I studied like the similarities and how the body worked and listened to my own body. So part of my healing path was never giving my power away outside of myself, right? To know that I have the power, right? I use source. I use what resonates with me is my answers, is my solutions. And so because I used that, I was able to find my way through a very sensitive detoxing journey because I wasn't able to do the full 28-day cleanse exactly how it was. I wasn't able to do the full heavy metal detox symptom or heavy metal detox smoothie exactly how it was. I wasn't able to do the 32-ounce celery juice or take all these herbs in high amounts exactly how they were. So I had to be able to. There's no doctors, there's no people out there that can just tell you, oh, well, this is what you need to do then, right? This is I had to be my own advocate to really do my due diligence to study my body, study this information. How do I heal? How do I okay, I know that it's all about the liver. He talks about it in every freaking book, every chapter he'll mention the liver and how the liver it has 2000 chemical function jobs, and when it gets overburdened with toxic heavy metals, with viruses, with pathogens, with fats, with troublemaker foods, with pharmaceuticals, and with your own acidic adrenaline from fear and stress, that is what keeps people sick. And
Right.
so I eliminated all those things, right? Did the spiritual mindset, and I literally had no more stress. Like I was not living in any stress. I awakened spiritually very quickly, so I was living in the now moment through love and light and surrender and acceptance and positivity. And so my body was already healing, like you said, ascension symptoms. My body was already healing because I started vibrating at such a high frequency, even with all those symptoms I still had, because the physical damage was still so much. A lot of people do heal when they ascend spiritually and be, do that work. They can heal depending on how much toxicity, how much physical damage there is, which is a whole nother topic. But it
Right.
wasn't enough for me to heal because of
Right.
how toxic I was and how
Right.
viral I was and how
It
much
was
damage.
the same thing for me. It just wasn't enough. I needed it
Yeah,
all. Yeah. Yeah.
and that's the case for a lot of people who are very spiritual. So it's important for them to also follow that cleansing path. But for people who get ascension symptoms and healing reactions, they're one and the same because it's all light energy, right? Food is energy from the earth. It's a frequency that cleanses you. Your own soul and consciousness can cleanse you, and together they really will cleanse you. And that's what my body started doing. So the reactions I was having was because my liver was so full, my body was removing all the toxicity that was in my organs and muscles and tissues and cells and bones. Like it just gets buried in there.
Hmm.
And there's much more than we can possibly imagine because it's microscopic. And look how big we are. There's so
Right.
much room to store poisons, and that's what our bodies do because of how toxic our bodies, this world is, and how the high fat diets we were on. So as I started doing the information, I started getting the reactions, and I knew what they were because I had took a detox course with this guy, Dr. Lamb, and his wife focus on adrenals and detoxification, and I took a month with them, one-on-one sessions with his wife, and she would give me some healing supplements, and they were good ones. And I started getting like I would get anxiety or brain fog from them, and so she would tell me what was happening, and she said, "Okay, we have to dial you down on the supplements for a day or two. It would clear out, and then we'll
Right.
bring it back in at 15-20% of the next dose." So she taught me that I needed to go slow, right? I
Right.
push it and then slow it down, push it and slow it down while I use my breathing to regulate through those symptoms. And so after about a month or two of that, I found medical medium and I let her go because I knew how to move forward. I knew the cleansing answers. I knew how it, and I started diving into detox, the celery juice. I mean, the leafy greens, the dandelion roots. I was going through the Life Changing Foods book and just picking out all the great things. I wanted all of it, and I started diving into all of it and created my own routine. And my body then began just really
Mhm.
purging, and I would get body vibrations and fatigue and weakness, and through my cleansing process. And Medical Medium has little nuggets in his books about that process. And in the thyroid healing book, he talked about fatigue there, and he says if you're getting energy dips and fatigue, right, it could be from you getting a bug, like a flu bug or something like that, or you could be a really good detoxer, right?
Right.
Because that means poisons are moving through your liver, your body's using your energy, you're going to feel tired, you're going to feel symptomatic during that, and then it's going to clear out and you'll get a little bit more energy back. And I have coined this term, a detox coma. A detox coma is what I call it,
Right.
where you can do a heavy metal detox smoothie or celery juice or something very cleansing, and you just lose all your energy and you go down for a nap, maybe for 10 minutes, for up to 4 hours, and then you just wake up and you come out of it and you're like,
Right.
that was weird. Have you ever experienced that?
I think I did in the very beginning. I mean, I think it was the same thing. We're very similar. I believe I had a really high viral load. I spent
Mm-hmm.
most of my 20s, drinking every weekend. So my
Mm-hmm.
liver was, by my third pregnancy, I was having gallbladder issues. And I had to have my gallbladder out. So I knew that my liver was not in a good place. And then I had been a smoker in my 20s, and so I would get bronchitis like every year, a couple times. So there was all these like, that you don't put them all together until, that's the books are very helpful because they, shine the light on that. But absolutely, that where you start doing the cleanse. And for me, I can remember when I started hitting the viruses hard because that's my personality. I'm like a, go hard or go home kind of girl. And getting sick for me, it was the same thing for you. It stopped my life. Like I couldn't work. I couldn't see. I had clients that I had been seeing for like, 12 years, 13 years. And I was having to say, no, I can't see you anymore because I'm too sick. I don't think I've shared this on the podcast. And I was thinking about this too. And I think it's relevant. So back in the day, I was a registered acupuncturist and I had my own wellness clinic, had my own, lots of people working for us, like, so lots of responsibility. And I can remember this particular day where I was feeling so lousy, like just the neurological. I didn't know it was neurological fatigue at the time. I thought it was adrenal fatigue because that's what all of the doctors were telling me and all the naturopaths. And I was weak and I was getting vasovagal episodes where I would feel like I was just going to faint. Now, my job at the time was to do healing work on people and with acupuncture. So literally had a client on my table and I put all her needles into her body, which was my job. I, made the room nice and quiet and then I left the room, which I would normally do, thankfully. Now I understand why, but I would leave them for 20 minutes or so by themselves. On that particular day, I was feeling so weak and so sick that I went into the washroom and I put acupuncture needles in myself on the resuscitation points, like certain points that are like to keep you from not fainting. And
Mm-hmm.
I sat in the bathroom with those needles in my body for the 20 minutes just so I could go back in there, take my client's needles out, finish her, and send her on her way. So, you look at I was dragging my physical body because I had responsibilities. I had people to show up for. I had a family to take care of. This was my job. I needed to do it. So when I started doing the cleansing and doing then being like, okay, this is it. I'm going on the cleanses. I'm doing the juice. I'm doing all that. I hit it hard. Like I was like, give me every single antiviral on there because I'm doing it. This protocol, that protocol, I'm doing it all. And I started to have such horrific die off symptoms that my anxiety was through the roof. It was like had never I'd had panic attacks in my 20s, but I'd never experienced anything like this before. And yeah, and you know, I would do the heavy metal detox smoothie and I would have no energy and feel worse. And you know, and my friends and family were all saying, "I don't think this is working for you. Like I think you're
Yeah.
doing something wrong." And I was like, "No, this is it. I can feel it. I know it." That you know, it's the same thing. You tap into your intuition. You reach a point where nobody else had answers for me. It was it was very relevant in my journey that nobody was going to save me. I had to save myself. And so through, you know, fighting through that, and I think I can remember early on when I went to go see you, I was in such a emotional low, right? Like this is and this is the thing I loved about Casey is that he was raw and real about how he was feeling. Like he was I went back and watched some of your very very early Instagram posts where you're like laying in bed and you're like right like and you were and I feel like you touched on this earlier, but when we show up, those of us who are healers, guides, teachers, when we show up in like our darkest times to be able to say, yeah, look at where I am, guys. Like, I feel like I'm dying. I feel like, you know, my soul's leaving my body. This is not a good place. But then we show up again the next day to be like, okay, I'm still here. It didn't kill me. I'm back. I'm doing this. I feel like that is such a powerful healing tool to give to people. And you
Yeah.
do this, you know you still do this.
Yeah.
You don't ever show up online in front of everybody and go, well, look at me, I'm perfect, look at how you know how much I've done and how invincible I am. You come up and show up every day with like, yeah, you know what, I'm having a flare right now, or this is coming up, and I but
Yeah.
here I know what to do with it. I know I'm not going to. And let me ask you this, do you feel like, because you worked with a lot of clients now helping them to heal and through your own personal healing, do you feel like there is a certain vibrational aspect or component to a person where maybe they have more fear, right? They than somebody else does, who when they come into this, that is such a big part of their healing. Like they have to heal that, because I know for myself, very very fear based, right? Even being a spiritual person, holding a lot of fear because I had a lot of trauma in my childhood that I just, you know, went into the mind with and out of the body. And, you know, that's where I stopped healing. But let me know if you feel like that, because I feel like those people who are in the medical medium community and are doing the work, I feel like those people that are like, yeah, you know what, I did it for 2 months and I'm all better. All my symptoms went away, compared to those of us who are, you know, a few years in and we're still working on it. I feel like that is the factor. It's the fear factor.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a word for you and I. And someone called me it and I didn't know what it was when I had a session with her about 5 or 6 years ago. She never even paid me too. That's what's funny. This the one client who didn't pay me. It was no big deal, but she called me the wounded healer.
Okay.
And that's what reminds me of you when you
Yeah.
were
Yeah.
had to go and do
Chiron, the
acupuncture
wounded
on
healer.
yourself.
Have you
And
looked into Chiron, the wounded healer?
no, I haven't. I
Yeah.
haven't.
You'll have to, because it's probably part of our story as well, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just funny. It's through that authenticity though that makes it so power. And the authenticity is the truth and confidence that I had in my healing and where I was because of the spiritual work, which gave me my power and
Right.
gave me able to move through that darkness as the light.
Right.
And we're here as humans to clear fear, because if there's fear present, that means there's love cannot be present, right? So
Right.
can you work on loving yourself through fears? Is it okay to have fears? Of course it is, because fear is here to help us push us into higher frequencies of love. It's all one. That's the beautiful aspect of this journey. It's okay if you have fears, but now we need to start working through them and start bringing in the light and love. And yes, I have seen it so often that people begin their healing journey and cleansing journey, and they start having weird symptoms and things come up, and they are very fearful. They're very fearful, and I I think that is mostly because Medical Medium doesn't talk about it a lot on his Instagram.
Right.
And if he did, if he was more vocal about that and what could you experience, saying like, hey, not all of you, but some of you might be sensitive. And while you're pushing that toxic stuff out, right, you can
Right.
experience this. This can happen.
Right.
There's nothing to fear. There's nothing to worry about. Your body's doing exactly what it needs to be doing. It's pushing out. And that would really melt people's mind into relaxation through the process, knowing that they're healing. Because I know this because that was the truth of my journey. And I've shared that truth. And I have seen thousands of people come through my page over the years and they're just like, thank you so much, I can relax, I'm good. Like, yeah, just trust it, like go
Right.
through
Right.
it, you're good. And you are one of those. Like, you came to me and you were just like in distraught over what was happening and confused, and you were suffering so much. I remember specifically you had severe dizziness, you couldn't work your practice anymore, and you're telling me like, I was spiritual, I'm a psychic, and I vibe with that. I understand that. And so like I really felt connected to you, and I'm like, Jody, you are healing so deeply. You are right where you're supposed to be. You are just being called to let go of that stuff right now so that you can get through this aspect of your journey and putting more of that focus into you. And that's
Hmm.
where you were, and you did it. And you came through to the other side, which is so incredible. And I didn't hear from you for a while because for a while you were coming to me like every couple of weeks or every couple of months, and then I didn't hear from you for a while. And I have clients like that, and I'm like, are they worse or are they better? I don't know.
Right.
And then you come and start texting me, you want to be on my podcast. I'm like, she came out the other side.
Yeah, and and you're right about everything, because when I went to go see you, I mean, it's not like you taught me anything that I didn't already know, because again, I was doing this as a living. I was, spiritual guide for people. But when we get completely engulfed in the fear vibration, we lack clarity.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a permanent place. That's not a permanent place. It can it's very transitional, right? And so coming and sitting with you and just having you hold space for me and just reigniting that light, it's like when your furnace light goes out and you need that lighter to go back in and start it again. That's what I needed. And I like that when because I love Anthony William, and I'm so thankful for the spirit of compassion and that, all of that information that's come publicly to us. But I too wish back then that Anthony would have been doing a little bit more of the, it's okay. Wait, and he does. He
He does
does it.
little tidbits here and there, and
Yes.
I actually did find some gold though. Somebody sent it to me in 2020. He made a video talking specifically, and then once again they're just little bursts, like 3 minutes
Yeah.
of. He'll do
Yeah.
these a whole hour and a half lives, and he just did little bursts in this one live about specifically saying how talking about how when you do start killing off viruses, when you do start removing toxicity, you can have you can feel a little bit worse. You
Right.
you can feel some of those symptoms kick up. You can
Yeah.
feel, see, but he does have to be very careful because he's talking to the whole world, and
Right.
it can be very confusing because you can easily be in a flare. Even if you're detoxing, you can easily be in a flare because you could have
Right.
something stressful, a big emotional event or reaction, you reacting to your symptom, reacting to a toxic relationship. You could have came in contact with some toxins, some fragrances, some mold. You could have got an infection, like cold or flu, or so you could have eaten something that was in your food that shouldn't have been there, or purposely, intentionally eating a troublemaker food. There's so many things that can cause you a flare. You could overdo it physically, that can cause you a flare. So I just understand the differences between cleansing reactions and flare ups. There is a difference,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
and so
For sure.
there's a certain. I just ask people certain questions to go through, move through, and I'll be able to tell when they're cleansing reactions versus flare reactions. And
Right.
you can have a flare while you're cleansing too, and there's also different layers to them. If it's not a consistent thing, if you're not in a consistent negative fear-based emotional state every day, if you're not eating troublemaker foods, if you're not having these your body will still cleanse. Like the body's going to get the upper hand when you're doing the right things.
Right. Yes.
I
Yeah.
overdid it physically so many times, and that would put me in bed for a week or for a month and kick up symptoms. But it's my reaction to me overdoing it physically is I would respond with surrender. I was respond with it's okay that I did that. It's okay that I'm here. It's okay that I need to lay back down, right? It was calmness, it was relaxation, it was surrender, it was
Right.
positive. And so always my body was able to easily recover from that while I kept cleansing. A lot of
Right.
people's is, oh, why me? Why do I have to keep going through this? This, I'm never going to heal. It's self-sabotage, right? It's not intentional. What is going to serve me to work through this event right now to get me to where I want to be, working through
Right.
each challenge, which is such a critical aspect of healing and moving through the detox journey, is the power of your mindset.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's I know it's not easy because when you are going through a flare or you are going through some detoxing symptoms, it's can be very scary because it's new territory and you're not going to find help from, your doctor or, probably not from your family from unless it's somebody that has been doing it and knows firsthand. And and this was, I needed to learn this as well because it was the whole, for me, I had to do a lot of mind body, balancing, getting back into my body. And I was not, when I was having a flare or having some die offs, I was not being compassionate with myself and I was not being kind hearted to myself. I was frustrated and I was angry because, like, why is this not shifting for me? Why is this? And it's our mind. I always say that the mind is not a very reliable translator for the body. Sometimes it very often will, present things in a skewed way that are not clear at all. And that's how sometimes our mind can easily stick on the negative aspects of things, right? So like I would be in the Facebook groups looking for support and all I would see were the people that were like, "Oh, yeah, all my symptoms are gone and I only had to do one
Hmm.
cleanse and blah blah blah." And here I was being like, "Well, I'm doing everything and nothing's working." But through the healing of everything, I had to go back in and go, yeah, but everything is working. Like you were doing so much that you weren't doing before. And I'm sure you talk to clients about this as well. Cause when I work with clients now, it's like every single thing that you do is making a difference now. Every single thing. So, like as an example, you firsthand being on all of the medical medium protocols with all those supplements is expensive.
Hmm.
It's, and that in itself can add that extra layer of stress to your healing,
Hmm.
which then it completely erases out the the benefit that you're getting from the products because your adrenaline and your cortisol is then feeding all of the bugs, so it's like this vicious cycle that we go
Oh
into.
yeah. Oh yeah. I had my wife on a lot of this, supplements, but it wasn't the Vimergy ones. It wasn't the expensive ones, right? It's just too much, right? There was some other ones out there that would still be used, right? And
Yeah.
the Vimergy products they're amazing. They're the top of the line. But if you're pushing yourself to buy all those and then you're stressing yourself out and you're not unrelaxed, like it's a little bit counterproductive, right? So
Absolutely.
so
Yeah.
yeah, that's another challenge for people moving forward, but it's a simple solution, right? It's the more you focus on the cleansing foods, the less supplements and herbs you're gonna need, right? The more you do 369 cleanses, 28-day cleanses, the less you'll need, right? Push your detox, right? That is how you free yourself. And
Hmm.
soul evolution will be take place of those supplements, right? But they have a place, they have a time and place, and they are very powerful and are super helpful. But for people who can't afford them, there are other options. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's, and I'm so thankful, and it's, I feel like also this is part of my healing journey. It's coming over that kind of like embarrassment, because there was a big part of that for me of, being able to show up publicly, because I am a public personality, and saying, "You know what? I'm sick. Like I'm not doing well." And there was a big part of me that was embarrassed by that. Didn't want to come out and be, how in the hell am I supposed to help other people when I'm not even helping myself?
Mm-hmm.
But healing that ego part of that was huge part for me. And like you said, like I applaud you so much for starting to help others, but you were like only one step ahead of them or two steps ahead of them, because you were just, working on your healing at the same time as helping others.
Yeah, and that there's no shame in any experience a human is having, right? The shame comes from the fear of judgment, right? The fear of not being seen as right, that's your truth, right? It's all judgment based from the egos that have been on this planet, and now that comes out, but that's another opportunity to shed that fear, right? It's another, and that's what I found in through this healing journey, is that this goes slips right by people's awareness because what they're going through is really hard and new,
Mhm.
but it's fear based, right? It's fear based thinking that is keeping people stuck, right? The fear of what other people think about them, the fear of not being seen, not being heard, not being validated. It's all fear. And understanding that our thinking is actually very simple. It only comes from four places. That is it. It is fear based and negative based. Our thought patterns are fear based and negative based, or they're faith based and positive based, or we can say love based and positive based. That's all our thinking is. And so during my healing process, me putting myself out there, there's the thoughts that would arise fear based, but it's what we choose to entertain. It's what we choose to focus on. It's what we choose to believe. That is our soul that always has that choice. Is for me, what I told myself is that if I can just help one person a day, I don't care what anyone else says. Then this is my truth. I should be able to live in that without being ridiculed or told it's not true, not to care. So I wouldn't focus on. I should be able to live in that truth, and that's the frequency of unconditional love in God. And
Mhm.
that's why so many people are so scared to live, and they have so much fear of judgment is because of other people's responses or because of things in the past where people just say one little remark to them, right? That can make them have fear of judgment, right? And not live
Right.
authentically, because you should be able to be yourself always and not
Right.
fear what you're going through.
Yeah.
So, to those people listening, it's okay what you're going through. It's okay that you're having these chronic symptoms. It's okay that you can't work. It's okay that you can't be that partner that you want to be and you know yourself. It's okay that you can't be that mom or parent that you want to be. It's okay that you're not yourself right now, but you
Mhm.
are expanding and you're being asked to meet yourself there with that love and strength. And at any point, you can wake up and say, I'm no longer going to live in fear. I'm no longer going to give away my power to fear anymore. And I'm going to own this. I'm going to be it. And it's really just owning it, owning this is my experience. This is my truth. And it's shedding
Absolutely.
that fear, around those things.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, what's your biggest advice? Like, if you could say to somebody who's really kind of like stuck in that fear cycle, and they, have no clarity, their body's, not doing well for them, they're struggling, and they're even struggling just to show up, maybe to, to do the medical medium stuff. Like, what would be like your biggest, like, here, just focus on this. What's your advice?
That's a really, really good question. And this is the starting point to true healing is based off that question. Is coming back to nervous system regulation. And that looks like step one, accepting, just accepting that this is what I'm experiencing this in this moment, right? And you have to accept what is so that we stop resisting what is. Because if we are in resistance to what is, we are in stress. We are in fight or flight, right? So the first step is moving into acceptance of our experience in this moment. And our minds like to go to, this is going to happen forever. I'm dying. This is, all these things, this worst possible negativity. And we focus on that, which you might be going through struggle, but you're alive, you're breathing. Like you
Right.
just, you need to calm down. Like, and so
Right.
that's what acceptance does, is it calms us down. This is
Right.
what's happening. There was a moment in the middle of my journey where, we attract the journey, the challenge of our spectrum, the spectrum of our journey. The challenges are the harder the journey, the higher you rise. And so through my journey, I had done so deep spiritual work that I didn't have any fear. And I was tested with that because 2.5 years into my journey, I got hit with bronchitis, like 15 new symptoms, severe.
Mm.
And they were so heavy and nasty. It was worse than when I first got sick. And I thought I could die. I never focused on the belief that I would die, but it felt like a possibility. Like it was so intense. And I was in the unknown again. And so I remember I was here with my uh she was just my friend, and we were uh hooking up Brooklyn now. We were connecting, and I was in the middle of the night. I didn't sleep all night, but it was like 3 a.m. and I breathed and I turned to God and I was like, if I die right now, I choose peace. Like I accept this moment. It's okay. And just it brings that no matter what is happening, you have the choice to choose peace.
Right.
You have the
Yeah.
choice to stop resisting. And
Yes.
when you do this, it moves you into God's hands, right? And so that's why I always lead with acceptance. Is acceptance of the moment. The next step is turning towards self-love, right? Self-love is that compassion for yourself, right? Because that's what fills takes that emptiness away, is that you hold yourself with love. Like, okay, now that you moved into acceptance, you may not have a solution yet or don't know what's going to happen. There's still is fear there, but
Right.
love is who we are, and it coddles us. It makes us whole again. So just tell yourself, I'm doing the best that I can.
Mhm.
I can't do any better than what I don't know how to do yet, and God would never ask me to do any more than just the best.
Right.
And as I learn more, I'll do better. But I'm doing the best that I can. I can move through this. This is temporary. This shall pass. And it's very true. Everything is fleeting, right? It's a
Yes.
moment, right? It's a hard moment. And they're going to come and they're going to go. And so as you love yourself and you just talk yourself through it. You're talking yourself back into your power.
Mhm.
And as you do this, right, you're filling yourself with that love. You're learning how to love yourself and through the pain. And that's the more that we do that in that painful place, we become love, right?
Right.
When we do that, just like how we talk to a child, if we talk to a child with love, right, they'll become more loving. And we're holding space for ourselves to move through something that's really out of our control. Like we didn't ask for that, we didn't cause it. It is just the experience we're having for the growth. And
Right.
we move acceptance, self-love, and then the third thing is surrender. Surrender, surrender, surrender. Right? The power of surrender is the power of healing. Right?
Yes.
Is where we get to meet the universe. We get to meet God and say, this is out of my control in this moment. I am releasing this control. I may not know what's going to happen, but it's all happening for my highest good. And we put the mind on the best possible outcome.
Right.
This is how we take our power back through these nasty symptoms, through uh, uh, flare ups, through negative people, right? Through each challenge is these three things. And when you combine these three things into every aspect of your life, you're taking your full power back. You're going to grow and learn
Absolutely.
at such a fast pace.
Yeah, absolutely. I love this, and I get it for anybody that's listening. Maybe you're in your bed right now because you can't get up and you're sick and you can't walk. I know for me, that first part that Casey's talking about, that acceptance, was the biggest hurdle for me. It was, you know, in order for me to go into the second part, which is the self-love, I couldn't get there. I could not get to the
Mhm.
self-love part unless I did the acceptance part. And for me, that was so hard because acceptance felt like I was giving up. And I had been, a warrior all my life, a fighter all my life, always, doing the grind. And now to be humbled by this experience where I had to accept it for where it was. And I love the way, Casey, it's perfect the way that you should trademark this really, because the way you have acceptance on one side, then you have the self-love in the middle, and then you have surrender on the other side, because that equation is all encompassing, but they're like intricate pieces of a puzzle. One doesn't fit without the other, and none of them work unless you're doing them in that kind of exact timing, right? It's the moment of how you do it. So that's
Yeah,
huge.
yeah, and absolutely, and acceptance doesn't mean that you're giving up. Acceptance means that you're getting rid of the resistance for just that current experience. That's it, right?
Right.
And l- you said, I've always been a warrior, I've always been a hard worker your whole life, right? And these are great aspects of the soul that we have to have on planet Earth to thrive.
Hmm.
But we're missing, and you're always been spiritual and connected, but you can always go higher. And that's what was happening with your experience, Jody, is you were being asked to go higher to get more into flow state, right?
Right.
And we don't need to overwork. We have to have a hard work ethic, but we don't need to overwork, right? We don't need to grind ourselves. And if we are doing those, then we're doing it wrong, right?
Right.
And there's no right or wrong. It's a lesson. It's okay if you are doing that. But
Right.
what I'm saying is that the teaching of acceptance is, hey, I'm right here. That's God. Like, God is right here. The universe is right here. You
Hmm.
don't have to try to control something and fight something that is out of here. Like, hold space for yourself. You're
Right.
going through this regardless of how you're reacting, right? We can choose peace for ourselves through that. And when we do that is when we'll begin shifting. When we start changing our response to the things that create stress,
Hmm.
we are learning the lesson, and that means we're going to create a new future because
Right.
you're learning the lesson.
Exactly. Yeah. And so, would you agree then? So, when we talk about acceptance being the first step, and within that is resistance, right? That's that
Mhm.
resistance. And I know for me, then to go into the next step, which is the self love, self care, I couldn't do that because I was literally resisting any type of, self care, self connection. There was like that wall there
Because
of,
what was the emotion that you were experiencing around what had happened to you?
yeah, it was anger, frustration, right? For sure. Resentment, bitterness, all of that.
You can't move into self-love or love at all with those emotions there.
Exactly.
Because you had this idea of, well, first of all, we don't want no we wouldn't choose these things for ourselves, right? that
Right.
that's what that's why it's part of the dark and light path, the ascension path, the growth path of
Yes.
our soul. We wouldn't choose that, but there's resistance there to those things, so it's learning how to trust more, like to trust our path. And when we move into acceptance, you're letting go and you're clearing that anger, right?
Yeah.
Acceptance is not accepting that this is how it's going to be forever. It's just the moment. And you're able to then calm down that anger and the emotions around what you're going through, right? But there's that ego that holds on. I don't want to go through this. This is crazy. This is just, I need to be doing this. I need to be doing that. It's like, yeah, you know what? But God gave you life and this is just your experience and you don't have control over that. Like,
Right. Right.
it's divine will over thy will,
Yes.
right?
Absolutely. Yes.
And so we're learning how to do 50%. We got to show up 50% for ourselves in all those areas. And then the other 50 is just letting the universe guide us.
Right. That's a
So we're
huge
meant,
thing to remember, right?
yeah,
Yeah, it's not just, you're not just doing this all by yourself.
we can't, right? That's not what we're meant to do. And the people who do are stressed out, control based, type A. There's no joy and love, the good feelings, right?
Right.
That's what it is. And so the healing journey is just mastering acceptance And then in the moment when you can do that, that opportunity then comes from for you to really start learning how to love yourself. And if that's hard for you, that's okay. Maybe you weren't loved in the right ways as a child, and that stems
Right.
from there.
Right.
But you are now being offered a choice to start reparenting yourself in the ways that you should have been parented.
Right. Yeah. So that's I was going to ask you next. So what are some ways like when you talk to people about self-love, self-care, you know, people instantly think about oh, it means I go get a massage or I, go get my hair done. But what is the easiest way? I think you just touched on that about you're parenting yourself. Show up as a parent for yourself, right?
Yeah, this is expansive. This is really, I mean, we can do like 5 podcasts just on this, but
Yeah. Yeah.
in the simplest ways to put it, we're talking to the people who have chronic symptoms here right now, right? So what's
Yes.
the one thing we want back? We want our health back. So that means we're focused on getting to that vision of our full health. And we're learning that when we are in resistance, when we're in fight or flight, when there's a lack of love, right? There's acidic adrenaline in our body. So having that knowledge is really helpful, right? That love actually calms us down. So love looks like anything that is going to one, relax you. It's going to calm your nervous system, and it's going to serve your healing. That's the biggest thing is what I'm focusing on now, whether that's the action I'm taking, the thoughts I'm thinking, my beliefs that I have, the perspective at what I'm looking at. Does that serve me in this moment to reach my goal of healing? And
Right.
that is it, right? That's self-love. So self-love is going to look different for everyone. It depends on the moment, on what serves you in that moment. So for example, after I got bronchitis 2.5 years in, and I had intense those new symptoms kicking up, I had a certain type of neurotoxins that was controlling my thinking and my being, and I had PTSD around getting COVID, getting sick, and I had crippling neurotoxins inflaming my nervous system that would create crippling anxiety and fearful thinking. And it wasn't myself, it wasn't me, and I knew that. It was my brain was being hijacked, and
Hmm.
so the me washing my hands so much, it was becoming such a pain in the ass for me and such a challenge. And I couldn't, because my whole thing was breaking through free from fear. Like I can surrender to God, I can face death. I did all that, but God's like, okay, you have that. Let's give you a new challenge. Like
Right.
I
Right.
couldn't break free from this. Like I was being gripped, and I thought for so long that I had to face it over and over again, and I did, but I couldn't set myself free. So I was being asked to just love myself through that, to nourish myself through that. So when I would be washing my hands so much and I didn't want to do this, but I had to do it because it made me feel safe and it was over and over again, I would be sitting on the ground and I'd be like, Casey, I love you. It's okay. Let's just go through this. We just got to get through it. This is going to pass once we get these poisons out. You're doing such a good job. You're so strong. So in that moment, I was being called to move through that PTSD, to move through that experience by just telling myself it's okay to be experiencing this. Like, I love
Hmm.
you. Like, you're doing good. We got to get through this to the other side. So, whereas me I couldn't just remove the fear and think positively because I was being attacked, right? So,
Right.
so I had to keep cleansing and then offering myself just words of comfort and
Hmm.
acceptance of the situation, and to go through it and to focus on where I wanted to be. And that's
Right.
what calmed me down. And so that's what served me in that moment for that experience.
Right. Yeah. And think of the simplicity in that. Like, I think you didn't need to call anybody up. You didn't need to go pay anybody to do that. You literally just had a heartfelt conversation with yourself, just assuring yourself that, we're okay, we're safe, and I think people don't realize they underestimate that, that inner ability to do that. And it does make such a significant because I can honestly say in the beginning of my healing journey, my inner dialogue was not kind like that. And when I started to realize, okay, I've got to make some major changes here, having conversations like you just said about we're okay, we're not going to be here the forever. This is just a, I had to say it to myself. I have a beautiful husband. We've been married for almost 23 years. And he was such a, he would come in there every day and say to me, this is just where you are right now. It's not where you're going to be. But I couldn't believe him because I needed to hear it from myself. I needed to hear my soul assure me that we were okay. We were going to do this. And you're right. And as soon as you do that, there's a sense of clarity that comes with something so simple as just that, heartfelt connection with yourself, that then the path before you of all the things that you need to do and what's most important, what's most beneficial, that just opens up for you.
Yeah, yeah, so 100%. It has to come from self-validation, right? When
Hmm.
we don't need it so much out of ourselves. Other people can say all these things, but it's got to come from within. We got to meet ourselves at that place, and that's where we're reclaiming our power. And a huge component to this, which I know you can contest to, is in order for you to actually move into these places, acceptance, self-love, surrender, is you have to be willing to sit with discomfort and go through the process, right? Because I tell people you can't go over it, you can't go around it, you can't go under it. The
Yeah,
only way out is
through
through.
it.
It's
Yeah,
through it. Because that is when you're forced to move into acceptance, self-love, surrender.
right. Absolutely. And there's no spiritual bypassing on that one. There's,
No, no.
yeah, you can't wish it away, you can't pray it away, you can't. And that was a big thing for me too, because somebody who works with angels and ascended masters and had such a strong connection to God, when I was sick and I needed to be healed, like send me a miracle, it didn't come. it didn't come, and it completely deflated my faith. I had to like rebuild all of this, right? Because again, it's like, sometimes I feel like we live in a house of glass where, we need to go back and rebuild that house in brick and mortar. Like that's, and like you just said, you can't bypass that. You have to go through the process in order to get there.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And it's the perspective of how you look at it. Your miracle was wanting to get rid of the discomfort that you were in. But the miracle came as in you were guided to what you needed to see and hear and do for you to move through that experience to get out of it. Right? Because
Yes.
the universe was bringing the power back into your hands, showing you how powerful you were. Right? You got the answers. You were guided to me. You got, oh, I'm actually healing. I'm actually going through what I need to go through, because pain and suffering, it pushes us into knowing who we are and what we're capable for. And it grows
Absolutely.
our faith. So you got your miracle and you became more empowered because of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I can honestly say, coming through all of that, I wouldn't bypass any of it. I understand now in the perspective of it that every single event I had to go through, every single one. And some of us, we're a little bit more stubborn and we have to learn our lessons the harder way. But like you say, it's like it's that leveling up. It's now putting you up into that next level of your ascension, of your awakening, which is the whole purpose of doing all of this stuff. So, Cacey, this has been wonderful, and I want to have you back because this is like I'm sure you guys listening to this, you just feel the energy that comes with Cacey, the light that comes within him, that inspiration, and sometimes that's what you need. Like it's those simple things where you just pop on and you watch some of Casey's videos or some of his talks or read his posts, and that is enough to shift your vibrational frequency in that moment to be like, okay, I'll continue. I'll continue. I'm not going to give up. I'm going to continue doing what I need to do. I will put all your stuff in the notes section of all everywhere everybody's listening. But can people work with you one on one? Are you seeing clients? Tell us about some. Do you have any events? I knew you in Brooklyn did some events last year, right?
Yeah, we did. We were doing some workshops together, but we put a pause on that just because of the baby, and she's diving into her content and I'm doing my content, and we will definitely meet together. And it's kind of out of the blue that happens, you know. It's just like,
Right.
hey, let's do this together. Where it overlaps our you know
Yeah,
our
yeah, that's cool.
message together. But yeah,
Yeah,
that's it. And this was really powerful, and I'll definitely repost this on my page as well. But when you share it, but yeah, I actually have a specific technique for my clients called Abapar. And that is, first step is awareness, second step is breathe, third step is acceptance, the fourth step is process, the fifth step is affirmations, the creating that new belief and empowering, and then the sixth step is redirect. So it's a six-step process to move through and reclaim your power through any moment, right?
wow.
To get your answers. That's what I teach my clients how to do in the spiritual mindset portions of getting through chronic symptoms, chronic illness, to reclaim that power. And so people can book a self transformation session for me to work through those symptoms or fears or limiting beliefs or self-sabotaging habits or any experience where they're stuck, right? And I'll help guide them to reclaiming their power through those sessions. And then I have medical medium first time sessions where it is for what is happening in your body, what are you experiencing, and then what are the next steps to take with foods and supplements and cleansing and that good stuff. And normally, if I have time at the end, because they're 90 minutes long, I'll dive into a little bit of mindset. But yeah, that those are how you work. And it's the link in my Instagram profile, and
Perfect.
that's how you work with me.
That's beautiful, Casey. That sounds like you
Yeah.
have all the bases covered. So you're a one-stop shop for when somebody's on their healing journey and they want the physical support, the emotional support, the spiritual support. So that's
Yeah, yeah,
beautiful.
all of it. And I'm eventually going to be expanding, and I'm going to create programs where I can hold a space for, 30 people at a time for 3 months, to dive deeper. Uh, but I'm not quite there yet with where I'm at right now. And
Yeah.
so it's just been those one-on-one sessions that help me. But I do returning clients too. So if people do work with me, they have the option at their own pace or whatever to book weekly sessions or bi-weekly or monthly, however much they need it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love
Yeah.
that. That's great. And of
Yeah.
course, stepping into the new role of being a father, you're going to adapt and things. That's, children are our greatest teachers. They definitely teach us how to roll with things and that, yeah, there's no urgency in anything except for the needs of the child for a while. So,
I know it's so beautiful. And it's funny. This is something that is more true for me is like when you move through chronic illness and you become empowered in that space, there is nothing more challenging than that. And everyone was telling me like, Casey, being a dad, it's so hard, it's a lot. Like they're like, yeah, it's great, but like it's just like I'm so exhausted, I'm so tired. I'm like, we'll see. I'm like, I've just been through hell and back. So, and
right.
first these 5 days with the baby, like I don't play a victim to anything.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, let's do this. Like let's get it. We got to get
Yeah.
up in the middle of the night. Let's do it. Let's get it. And
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, but it's been a little bit, tiring and out of the normal and adapting. But we're here to adapt and enjoy that process, right? And then it all becomes doable.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I'm just hearing spirit saying, everything that you've been doing has been priming you for this moment. It always is like that. We're always getting primed for this moment that we're in. But congratulations to both you and Brooklyn because this is such an exciting time. Please give her my congratulations. Hopefully, she'll watch the podcast too and give us her feedback in that. And maybe we'll have her on the podcast at some point when she's freeing up her time a little bit and wants to talk to us, our listeners, about what she does because she's also, very, very gifted in guiding spiritual aspect of life as well. So that's very
My
cool.
God. Yeah. You have to have her on to listen to her birth story and just reclaiming her divine feminine womanhood. Yeah.
Yeah, that
It's
that
very
would be
powerful.
so empowering for
It's a
sure.
very powerful story that she has.
Well, maybe you can put a good word into her for
I
me.
will, I will. Absolutely.
We'll have her on the show. Okay,
Absolutely.
my friend, thank you so much. As always, it's a pleasure, and we will have you back again. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much, Jordy. It's been a pleasure here and sending so much love and light to you.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Collective Soulversations Podcast. We really appreciate you taking the time to listen, and we hope that you found our chat both inspiring and thought-provoking. Your support means everything to us, and we're excited to keep this journey going with you. So make sure that you subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so that you never miss an episode. If you enjoyed today's conversation, we'd love for you to leave us a review and share your thoughts in the comments. Your feedback helps us grow and connect with more wonderful listeners like you. Until next time, stay curious and keep those soulversations flowing.